Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats, weekly podcast episode number 142. I am your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan. If you can't do it, nobody can. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels around the world, and the globe, and the universe, and other life forms in other countries. No, that doesn't make sense. You get my drift. We like wooden boats here at Hooked on Wooden Boats. Thanks for tuning in today, folks. I had to re-record the intro like 3 times because I kept spacing out on the jargon that I've been using for the last 3 years, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, it's been 3 years next month that Hooked on Wooden Boats was birthed. So thanks for tuning in today. We've got another fun episode planned. I'm going to be playing our featured segment here in a few minutes, and that is an interview I did with Bob Lamson this summer. Bob owns a 1999 Venetian Water Taxi, and it's a boat that's all varnish. The hull is completely bright work, and it's made out of South African Mahogany in Italy. It's a fascinating story of how Bob commissioned this boat to be built. It's an absolutely gorgeous boat. I've seen it pretty much the last few years, every year at the Wooden Boat Festival in Seattle at the Center for Wooden Boats. And so this summer when I was there, I went up and talked to the owner, whose name was Bob, and we sat down and did this interview. And it's a fun story. I think you're going to enjoy it. Of course, if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't be listening, right? Okay. So, news and highlights this past week. Not a whole lot going on here at the Hooked on Wooden Boats International Headquarters in Stanwood, Washington. Although I did work on, as you know, I'm prepping my garage to put my scamp in so I can start working on it to finish it. So I did work on the garage some. It started raining here the last few days, and that always puts a damper on things. It's like it just changes the whole mood of everything. We had such beautiful weather this summer, had an absolutely great streak going on, and I think it'll come back here. We should get a few more weeks of fairly decent weather, at least some sun and dry weather. But right now with all this rain, it's a little dreary out there, folks. But I am hoping to get the scamp in the garage in the next week or two. And then I've got to work on this. A friend gave me a table saw. I mentioned this a few episodes back. It's a grizzly and it needs a little bit of work, so I'm going to be working on that because I do want to have a table saw set up. This week we've got 2 new subscribers to the electronic newsletter of the podcast, Matt Borax and Jerry Banford. Thanks for signing up. If you would like to be a subscriber to the free electronic newsletter, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. Give me your name, email address, and you're in like Flint and good to go. So I would encourage you to do that. I just share fun let's back up. I share fun resources and tidbits and let you know what I'm up to. And it's a lot of fun. So check it out when you get a chance. If you would like to leave some feedback for the podcast, you can go to my homepage, and on the right-hand side, there's a little button you can click, and you can leave a voice message right from your computer, up to 90 seconds. Tell me what you like about the podcast, or give me some other feedback, or maybe tell me about some projects you're working on. That would be pretty sweet. I would appreciate that. Okay, there's no upcoming events that I am aware of. Last week I talked about the race to Alaska, which is next June 4th. And wow, I just don't have anything on my radar right now other than working on my scamp. So we're going to move right into the interview here with Bob Lamson, and I hope you enjoy that. Take it away, Bob. Okay, it's July 4th, 2014. I'm with Bob Lamson. We're sitting on a gorgeous boat here, which I forgot to ask the name of the boat, Bob. What's the name of this boat?
Capolavoro,
Capolavoro.
which means masterpiece in Italian.
Okay, cool. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, Bob. And I'm here at the boat festival along with Bob, and I'm walking by, and I've seen this beautiful boat here before, and we started chatting. But tell me a little bit about yourself first, Bob. Kind of boating you did growing up, and just a little biography, if you would.
Well, I was born in Seattle in 1942, so I've been here most of my life. And when I was a kid, my father was a test pilot at Boeing, but he also had part-time a wooden boat yard on the Duwamish River. And as a kid, I'd go down there and they'd give me blocks of wood and a hammer and some nails and some glue, and I'd sort of putter around while they were working on the boats. And then he co-designed with another man a class of wooden sailboats called Evergreens. They were 36-foot sailboats, and so I grew up virtually immersed in wooden boat building and wooden sailboats.
What part of Seattle did you live at that time?
Lived initially on Beacon Hill, and then we moved to Mercer Island in the early 50s, when Mercer Island actually was less developed than probably Shaw Island is today.
Wow.
It was really country in those days. It was nothing like it is now.
Was there a bridge to Mercer Island?
There was a bridge. The bridge had been built in 1939, but when I was there was only one grade school, one gas station, one grocery store, one hardware store, one drugstore, and that was it. So you had to, after grade school, you had to go either to Bellevue or into Seattle. And then I was, while I was in school, then they built the junior high school and the high school, and I was the first class out of the high school and the third class out of Mercer Island High School. So, but that was we had lived on the water there, and my dad was still an avid sailboat racer, which then I became as well. And we built a wooden outboard hydroplane together. So wooden boats have been pretty much my main hobby interest, I guess, for years and years.
Yeah, so your dad was a test pilot at Boeing, and part-time he had a boat shop.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was he doing at the boat shop? What was he building? Or
they were building primarily they were building basically custom-made wooden boats for people. So I was too young to really know, but I think they built mostly sailboats. If I remember, they were all fairly big boats, so they were 30 feet plus. They built a couple of the Evergreen class that he designed there, and I'm not sure what class the others were, but it was primarily sailboats, and then they would of course do maintenance as well. So you could bring your boat there and they'd haul it out, and wood boats, as you know, take quite a bit of care, so they did a lot of that as well. It was called Co-Star because he owned it with another man named Ken McKee, and then eventually when he started his own aircraft business, he had to sell that, so he sold his share in that business. But by that time I'd been pretty much immersed in wooden boat building and maintenance and sailing.
How long was that shop around, you know?
I think it was probably from about 1940, I would say 5 to maybe 1955. I don't know overall, but I think that's about the time period that he was involved with it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he actually started it with Ken McKee or whether he joined him, but they also made wooden skis. My dad was an avid skier, and so they also made plywood skis. They were
water skis?
Water skis and snow skis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was kind of a cool place.
Yeah. So are some of those evergreen boats around still?
Oh, yeah. There's a couple still left in Seattle, I think, and there's one in Acapulco. and then I think a couple of them have been sold and have left the area. They're a beautiful boat. They're a sloop, very similar to a 6-meter, only a little bit beamier and with a cabin, but about the same length. We used to actually race against 6 meters, and we could hold our own pretty much. In light winds, they'd kind of beat us, but otherwise we were pretty competitive.
Do you know how many of those boats were built?
I think a total of 13.
Wow.
One sank in a storm in the Rosario Straits, right off of right between Mexia and Susha, in a storm. That was a kind of a tragedy in a severe storm. But the rest of them, I don't know whether they're still around, but I know that there's at least 2 in Seattle that are still active. And I know there's one in Acapulco that's been there for a long time, actually.
Yeah. Now, what other boats did you race as a kid or growing up over the years?
Primarily just the Evergreen.
Okay.
Was as a kid that was our family boat, and so we would not only race but we would cruise up in the San Juans every summer. I had 4 brothers and sisters, and usually we didn't have everybody at one time, but there'd be usually 3 kids and my folks, and we'd have a week or 10 days up in the San Juans every year. And so racing was pretty much the Evergreen. I did race a couple of times in just for the fun of it in Thunderbirds a couple of times, and then in Flatties. With my cousin had a Flatty, so we raced several times in that. But primarily I was racing in the Evergreen.
I see.
Evergreen's also very similar to a PC, if you know what a PC is.
I don't
A PC
know.
they're really beautiful boats. They're the traditional, like the what is it, the Pirate that's here and the Lady Van, similar to that, only a little bit beamier. And nice sheer, a nice look to them. Not a masthead jib. It was a 3/4 jib. So they're very, very pretty boats under sail.
Yeah. So tell me about this boat we're sitting on here. Give me some of the gory details about this boat.
Well, I haven't grown up in the boat wooden boat world. When I was in Venice, I was doing business in a small town outside of Venice, and a couple times on the weekends would go to Venice. And one time I was there with my wife, and I kept seeing these beautiful wooden motor taxis. As you know, in Venice there are no wheels, not allowed actually. You can have a hotel can have a hand cart to help people with their luggage, but no bicycles, no skateboards, no anything. So
no bicycles.
No,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're not allowed. So you either walk or you take a boat. So everything's a boat. Ambulances are boat. Fire trucks are fire boats. The police are all in boats. Garbage trucks are garbage boats. So the entire thing is a boat community. There's 100 canals in Venice and 400 very low-profile bridges. So it's to me it's the most interesting town in the world. There's nothing like it. It's just an incredible place. And so we were there, and I kept seeing these beautiful wooden motor taxis. These are used primarily as taxis, and I had no intention of buying one, but I wanted to see the boatyard because of having grown up with a boatyard with my father, and so I asked the concierge at the hotel if he knew the person, and as it turned out, he was a friend of his, so he arranged for my wife and I on a Saturday to go to the boatyard, and the man's name is Elio Salvagno, and just a wonderful, wonderful guy, about my age, and just very friendly, very warm person, and obviously totally in love with wooden boats, and so he showed me around the yard, and there was one boat that was being just started, so I could see the framing on it, which was all South African mahogany. And then he had one boat he was just finishing, which was just gorgeous. And so we didn't have a translator, so I had to use a little translation book. He spoke no English and I spoke no Italian, but we were basically able to communicate enough that I could understand. He can build about 8 wooden boats a year. He also does some fiberglass and some maintenance, but his love is the wooden boats. And so after that, my wife and I were sitting at the hotel, and the more I watched these boats, and having met with him, the more it got almost like, I don't know, it was like an addiction slowly building or something, And so I always told my wife she'd never have to worry about me leaving her for another woman, but the right boat. Be careful.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, well then go ahead and buy one of those. So I commissioned to have this built. This was 1999. And I was able, because I was doing business there, so I was able to see it at 3 different stages during its construction, which was really fun. It's cold molded construction, which means instead of planks, it's very thin veneer. 4 different layers. It's in a way like building up a boat in plywood, and the reason you do it that way is because you can do compound curves. So that's why the lines are so beautiful, because you can bend the wood 2 ways when it's very thin. You can't do that with thick wood, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was fun to watch it being built, and then the hull is a basic hull. It's the taxi style, but he'll configure the interior any way you want it. So he and my wife basically worked out the way we'd have the interior. So the boat is all South African mahogany, has 13 coats of Effapanes varnish, which is a Dutch made varnish that has a very high resistance to UV, to ultraviolet. So it's really good for a wooden boat. And the engine is a 200 horsepower Volvo Penta, which is the standard engine they use, with an outdrive that has counter-rotating props on the same shaft. So the boat is very true where you direct it, either in reverse or forward. You don't have any torque pulling you one direction or the other, which is very important in Venice because the canals are very narrow, and they're making 90-degree turns around stone buildings, so there's no forgiveness if you hit something.
Wow.
And there's boats coming both directions, so these things have to really be true in terms of their steering and what you want them to do. So you can't anticipate like you can with some boats that it's going to float a little bit one direction or the other. It really needs to be. So the counter-rotating props do that. The outdrive give you that kind of control. And then the interior is suede. The benches and the stuffed chairs are suede, which my wife wanted. The ceiling has a suede inlay to it as well. And then we have a refrigerator and a place to store glasses, and that's all mahogany as well, except the inlays are walnut burl. He has a huge stump, had at the time an enormous stump of a walnut tree at his boatyard, and he would shave off just these thin veneers of walnut, and that's how you get this beautiful walnut beer. So it's basically the stump of a walnut tree.
That's amazing.
So, and then the floor are teak, actually, because teak is tougher in terms of walking around and so on.
Yeah.
And then I've got, I have some carpets that were Armenian carpets from Turkey that we've laid down, and so it's really kind of like a small living room in a boat, and beautiful. We love it. It's really gorgeous. It also is a wonderful boat to use, though. Top speed's about 35 knots and cruises at 25, so, and quite fuel efficient with the diesel power plant. So pretty
So do you,
pretty nice boat.
Do you cruise around Lake Washington, obviously? Do you go out in the Sound some too? Or?
No, I don't. I mean, it's a day boat. There's no, it's not, doesn't have bunks. It doesn't have a head. And so it's as you know, the taxi style you would imagine. So we use it. It's more interesting really on Lake Union and Lake Washington than it is out in the Sound. Once you get out past the locks, there's not a whole lot to see.
Yeah.
And this boat is used more for just cruising, enjoying the waterfront. We like to go over, of course, around and see the houseboats on Lake Union, and then out in Lake Washington, cruise, near the Laurelhurst district or near, the east side where you can see some really, beautiful homes and other boats. Mm-hmm. So that's how you use it. And then usually when we're out in the afternoon or evening, we'll then come in back to Lake Union and go to one of the restaurants here. And then after dinner, come out, and when it's dark, Seattle's a beautiful place, so it's fun.
Yeah.
So that's how the boat's used, really, as a day boat entertainment kind of thing, not as a cruiser.
Yeah, I see. And what are her dimensions, Bob?
31 feet long and 7-foot beam at the widest point, and as I said, all South African mahogany construction with walnut burl inlays, and I guess that's about all. I don't know what the actual weight is. I did know that at one point, but I don't know what it is. I think it's about 4,000 pounds, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, she's a gorgeous boat. What's her name again?
Capolavoro, which means, actually literally translated, it means top of or head of, but capo, and lavoro is labor, so it means top of labor or best of labor, head of labor, which translates actually into masterpiece.
Oh, I see.
So Capolavoro means masterpiece in Italian, and he named it because he was so excited he knew about Seattle and the wooden boat tradition here. He's a very well-informed guy.
Really?
And so he was very excited to build a boat that he knew was going to be in Seattle, so he said, I'm going to build you a masterpiece. So when he asked for the name, we hadn't really figured that out yet. And he said, well, can I make a suggestion? And we said, sure. And he said, Capolavoro, which we love the sound of it. It's a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And we said, yeah, that's interesting. What does it mean? He said, masterpiece. I said, okay. So
that's it, huh?
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
That is cool.
And he visits, when the boats leave Venice, he goes and visits every boat.
Venetian Water Taxi.
And so he came to Seattle
really?
about let's see, 3 months after we bought the boat. He was here in Seattle. He came to the Wooden Boat Show. And no, it was less than that. It was about 6 weeks after we bought the boat. And he wants to see where you're going to keep it, and how you're going to take care of it, and so on. He said, building these boats to him is a labor of love. He considers himself a boat artist, not a boat builder. And he said it takes him 8 months to build one, so whenever he gives it away, it's a little bit, he said, this is a tinge of resentment he has when he has to give the boat away, because it's really become something.
Yeah.
So he wants to go see where you're going to keep it and how you're going to take care of it, and then teach you a little bit about handling it. It is it's not automatic to learn how to handle a boat like this, because it pivots very far forward.
Oh, it does.
And so the stern will swing very fast if you're not careful.
Oh, wow. So
he helps you learn how to drive it and everything, and then we had a wonderful time. He and his wife were here, and they were here at the Wooden Boat Show, and of course people were complimenting him on his boat, and so he had a great time. He was beaming.
Yeah. So back here in the what would you call this area that we're in?
The salon.
The salon. It looks like the roof slides.
Well, yes, that's a plexiglass roof with the South African beams that go across, and that slides back, and then the windshield you can see there is automatic. It goes up and down, and so when it rains, this whole back area is completely sealed in, and then it's heated. Those black outlets right there are heated off the manifold of the engine. So in the winter, it's really very comfortable. You can be back here, and we've been out in actually snowstorms. We had some people who were up from California and were dying to go out in the boat, and it happened to be one of those days we had a snowstorm, and we went anyway.
Really?
And they were just as cozy as anything back here, and
how fun!
Yeah, it's really
blast.
It's a beautiful boat, but it's deceptive in a way because it's a very tough boat. It's very well designed for weather conditions and so on. The bow has got a very a beautiful compound shape that throws the water out as you hit waves. So it's a very dry boat even in fairly stormy seas. And then the back part of the hull is very flat. So it gets up and goes when you turn around. So it's a beautiful. Actually,
is it a planing hull or displacement?
It's a planing hull.
Yeah.
Well, it's displacement, of course, at a slow speed. But once you get up on top, it's planing, and which is why it can do 35 knots. Interestingly enough, he told me that the PT boats. This is an old design. These boats have been built in Venice way back since the teens, and so he told me that actually the PT boats in World War II, the below the waterline was designed after this design of these Italian taxis, because of that same fact that they would be very good in a sea, and yet they could get up and go and plane if they.
Wow, fascinating.
So it's really interesting tradition, and unfortunately he's the only one left that builds boats in wood in Italy.
Is he getting up there in years?
Yeah, he's in his mid-70s, and most of his crew, he's got 10 people, I would say, at the he's got more than that, but 10 who are really skilled in the woodworking necessary, and he's really thinking that once he dies and those people retire, it may be hard to continue, because it's very hard to get people to apprentice there. The young people in Venice are there's not much to do in Venice except the tourist industry, so most of the young people want to leave, and so they leave Venice and for more interesting careers, and so it's very hard to get people to apprentice with him. And as you can see from the jointry, and you see the way all this goes together, how absolutely perfect it is. It takes a very long time for people to learn how to actually handle this kind of wood with the degree of perfection that he demands. So that's why he's concerned that it may not be much longer to be able to get a boat like this.
Yeah. So I just noticed the helm was on the port side of the boat.
Yeah.
Because most boats here are starboard.
Right, which nobody can explain as to why that is. Why they're
all
on
the boats over
side.
there?
The boats in Italy, his boats are all on the port side because it's the same side that you drive on.
Yeah.
And the rules of the road in the sea are pretty much the same as on a road. You're basically passing. You're staying to the left, and so nobody can explain to me why the boats in the United States have the helm on the right side.
I've never thought about that before.
So
all of our cars are on the left,
and it's all on the left. And so I wanted it the way they made it.
Yeah.
And he offered it. He said, "I can do it on the right if you want." I said, "No, I'd like to have it the Italian."
Yeah.
Do you want to look at all of them before you vote?
Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast today, Bob. Anything you'd like to add here at the end?
No, I can't think of anything else. I mean, this has just been fun doing this. I love the boat, and it's now been this is its 16th year here at the show. We're pretty fortunate. Oftentimes, we'll win the best in show vote by the attendees. So, no, it's been a real pleasure.
Cool, great. Well, thanks a lot, Bob. I appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks.
Okay. Bob, thanks for doing that interview. You've got an absolutely gorgeous boat. It was really fun to sit down with you and hear the whole story. Very awesome story, very romantic and very people-centered, so that's pretty sweet. So congratulations. If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so by email, Dan at I've got a new email. I keep forgetting. woodenboatdan@gmail.com. That's woodenboatdan@gmail.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter by going to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. / is kind of a long way to say that you got a little line that slants to the right. But anyway, you can leave comments on my website, on the blog posts, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube. And by the way, I did put up 108 pictures from the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival on my Facebook page, Wooden Boat Dan, so check that out if you get a chance. You can send me pictures and stories, leave a voice message from my website, and if you would like to subscribe to the podcast, you can do so on iTunes. If you go to the podcast section of the store and search for Hooked on Wooden Boats, and you can subscribe there. That would be pretty sweet. If you'd like to help support the podcast and you make purchases from Amazon, if you go through this link first, I get paid a small commission, and that link is hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon. I do have an ebook for sale on my website, and there's also a Kindle version called Get in the Wooden Boat Game, a guide for building your first boat. The ebook PDF version is $4.99 and the Kindle version is $5.99. And I've also got some other things for sale on the website. A book by Russell Brown about epoxy and some things like that. And if you'd like to get t-shirts, flip-flops, hats, and so on with the Hooked on Wooden Boats logo, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/store. Okay, that's it for all the paid and unpaid announcements today. I hope you have a great week. Get out on the water. Keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. Wooden Boat Dan over and out. God bless. Have a great week, and we'll talk again next week. Take care.